I introduce Patrick Mukaida, who's the past president of the museum board and an all-around good guy who has a lot of interesting insights from his family. Patrick.
That was so fast. I was born and raised in Healdsburg, as was my sister. And I think we're on the 5th generation of family in Sonoma County at this point. I don't have kids or grandkids. Kind of hard to have grandkids if you didn't have kids. And but my cousins have kids and grandkids. So what I'm going to talk about is not so Healdsburg centric necessarily, but a little bit broader Sonoma County in general, because my family.
Not you. You're good, Patrick.
Oh.
Always good, Patrick.
My family lived all around the county. So let me give you a little background on where I come from. So all 4 of my grandparents were born and raised in Japan, around the Hiroshima area. And in about 1918 or so, my grandparents, my father's parents, immigrated to Maui. And that was way before it was a state, and they worked on the pineapple plantation. Well, that period of time, World War I was happening. And so my grandfather joined the US Army because they would make him a US citizen. So from that point on, that side of the family, my grandfather was a citizen of the United States. They came to California. There were other relatives here already, and they met up with other family in around Sebastopol area and farmed and went around and picked crops for other people and that kind of thing. Sometimes it was near Healdsburg, other times it was in other parts of the county. My mother's family was somewhat similar. I believe they did stop in Hawaii as well, but then came to Sonoma County, and again, farming, picking crops, that kind of thing. So Pearl Harbor gets bombed. That was not good for anybody. And a curfew went into place in Sonoma County. And then in February of 1942, Executive Order 9066 was issued, and that was to move all the Japanese people from the West Coast. And there were a lot of states that wouldn't allow a camp to be built, but Colorado was a state that said, we'll do that. So the order takes place, and they didn't go to Colorado directly. First, they went to what they called an assembly center in Merced, and it was at the Merced Fairgrounds. So housing was stables and that kind of thing. And you could only take with you what you could carry. So there's this mad rush. Everybody was afraid that if they had certain documents, they were going to get hauled away and that kind of thing. So a lot of things got burned or buried before these people left to go to Merced. And this little box is what my mother's mother took with her. So before they had to leave, this is where they had important papers, photographs probably. But when it was time to go, this is what Grandma took. It's cardboard. It's not even wood or anything. And the note in the box was Grandma's suitcase. Before camp, kept valuable papers in it. And then it went to Merced and Amachi, which Amachi was the name of the camp in Granada, Colorado, that most of the Sonoma County people were sent to. And there were about 800 Sonoma County residents that went there. The entire camp had 7,318 people in 1943. So there's when people are gathering to get on the train. blacked out windows so they didn't know where they were going or where they were. This is what one of the camps looked like. This is the camp my family was actually at. And it didn't exist until they knew that they were going to move all these people there. So they hastily put up these barracks, tar paper, no insulation, cracks that let in the cold, this dust and insects. And a room was 20 by 24 for a family. I don't know how big this room is, but this is way bigger. And so picture, at least 4 people in a 20 by 24 space. You had your meals in a mess hall. You went to another facility for showers and things like that. So the whole concept of the individual family changes because you're dining and working with all these other people. You're not doing it in your own space. So that kind of changed family dynamics because of that situation. Let's see. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if you can see them in here, but there were guard towers and guards with guns in them. Now, later on, people were allowed to go to town, and some people actually worked outside the camp, some joined the military. And the war ended in 1942, or the camp closed in 1945. These are 2 pictures of my mother. She's on the left-hand side. She's the one on the left, the shorter one. And in the right-hand picture, she's the second one in the plaid. The first picture might have been taken before she was in the camp because the background, it doesn't look like the camp buildings, but those are very early pictures. There are some people from Healdsburg that were in the yearbook. I actually have 2 of the yearbooks from Camp Amachi that were my dad's, and I brought them. So if people want to see me afterwards and take a peek through them and see what some of the other parts of the facility looked like. They had school, they played baseball, they had some semblance of normalcy, but, they're in a place with barbed wire. We'll get to that picture in a minute. So the war ends, people come back. And one of the interesting things about Sonoma County is people that had land, there were quite a few instances where the neighbor would look after the land for these people until they got back. And then they had a home to come back to. So living in Sonoma County would have been a little different than if you had lived in a big city, San Francisco, Los Angeles or something. I think the hysteria probably ran higher in the big cities, higher concentration of Japanese people. So it was a very fearful time, like Jerry was mentioning. So after the war, that's kind of when the Mukaida and Morikawa Healdsburg part of the story happens, because my mother's family lived on Limerick Lane. And the freeway now goes right through where their vineyard was. So, and they, if you know that area, they lived across the street from Bruno and Barbara Baki. And so we were friends with them forever and ever, and still. So my mother and father married at this church in Sebastopol, which is still there. That building came from the Chicago World's Fair, shipped in pieces, and it's put together without nails. And there's a chow mein lunch at March 28th, and you can go and eat chow mein and probably get to see the inside of the church if you want to go. It's pretty cool. But after mom and dad got married, they moved to Healdsburg, to University Street. And then I came along, my sister came along. I still live in the house that mom and dad bought. And my sister still lives here in town too, just up Center Street. But yeah, World War II really changed how Japanese families functioned and related because of the big difference in taking away that individual family structure. And it was more of a group kind of thing with the living space, the eating and all of that kind of thing. But I think people that were from here were fortunate because I think people were a little kinder in a rural area like this than had we been in a big city with a lot of other folks. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jerry.
Thank you, Patrick. Good job.
Thank you.